Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Rachel Scott-Mignon.
Good morning, everyone. As I was preparing for today, my grandmother said to me, just picture one of the fellows in their underwear. But given the size of the crowd and how nervous I am, I think I'm gonna have to picture everyone in their underwear. So it's gonna be an underwear party in my head. But seriously though, my name is Rachel Scott-Mignon, and I am pleased to be with you this morning. In many ways, it is strange to be here, kind of surreal, because last year I was here in the audience, sitting just somewhere over there with my mom. As you saw in my video, I know firsthand what it is like to be in pieces, sometimes broken, to be sad. But I also know what it is like to be whole, hopeful, to be in the moment, to be happy, to be in love. Sometimes this happiness gets out of control, and it's like a carnival in my head. Everything's fast and out of control. Unfortunately, I know both ends of that spectrum all too well, and that's what living with bipolar disorder is all about. Through the video, you have been introduced to me and my illness, my family, and the many challenges a young person living with mental illness faces. I would also like you to know the rest of me. I'm soon to be 28 years old. I have a 4-year-old Yorkie, Moxie, whom I adore. I am a vegetarian, and Indian and sushi are among my favorite foods. In my spare time, I love practicing yoga and watching movies. I have a degree from the University of Ottawa in theater and in communications. I'm a daughter, a granddaughter, a sister, a girlfriend, an employee, and a friend. You might be thinking I am just like some of you in the audience. If not you, perhaps your sister, your daughter, your wife, your neighbor, or friend. That's right, I am the face of mental illness. I am one of the 1 in 5 people affected. If we do consider that I am the face of mental illness, in a world of pervasive stigma, what then are we so afraid of? This is something to think about as I continue to tell my story. It is great to see Daniel Alfredson here this morning. This is not the first time I have met Daniel. This past spring, I received an Inspiration Award from the Foundation and met Daniel at a special reception for recipients. In fact, I am one of the many people in Ottawa who answered Daniel Alfredson's call and stepped forward to the Royal Ottawa Foundation with an offer to help. I became an active blogger on the You Know Who I Am website. On October 3rd, 2008, I started to tell my story on youknowwhoiam.com. At first, it was very exciting, and my blog began to document the last 2 years of my life. It created a continuing, meaningful dialogue with people in the community. If you were to follow my story, however, you would see gaps. These gaps were when my illness took hold and I was an inpatient at the Royal. The decision to be open with others about any illness is very personal, and unfortunately, there is still lots of stigma attached to mental illness in particular. The reason I'm so eager to share is because for the first 23 years of my life, I hid the symptoms and feelings I was so ashamed of. I can't remember exactly when all this started for me. From when I was a kid, I have memories of overwhelming sadness and loneliness without a particular reason. It wasn't until I was a teenager that the depression became more painful, persistent, and intense. The first time I seriously wanted to kill myself was when I was about 16 years old. As you saw in the video, I remember going to my brother Joel and explaining that I had lost all control, that every moment of my life these days was just so difficult. I was struggling minute by minute to exist in this world and keep from killing myself. I can still remember so vividly how torturous and alone that felt. Once I admitted my suicidal feelings to my brother, I developed even more guilt, this time about asking him to protect my secret. I begged him not to tell our parents. He encouraged me to go to them, telling me that he knew they would be supportive and would want to know. I was still far too ashamed, though, to take that step. Joel told me through tears that he loved me more than anything in the world, and that his whole existence would be devastated if I ended my life. His words were enough that day. They didn't stop my suicidal feelings, but they were enough to prevent me from following through. My mind was still rational enough at that point for this to be an obvious, valid reason for me to keep fighting. I was 16. You are supposed to be happy, carefree, the best days of your life, starting to drive a car, looking forward to university, maybe even falling in love. Unfortunately, I was struggling with wanting to die. That was not the only time I contemplated suicide, but it was my first. It may be hard for you to imagine what it is like to contemplate suicide, but when you have lost all hope of ever coming out of the lonely black hole in which you find yourself, it often seems like the only rational answer. It seems like a way to free yourself from the heavy burden and terror that you are plagued with each living moment. What I have learned from being sick is that having a mental illness is a lonely place. Often it is you and your thoughts cannot always be trusted. That's what is so terrifying about a mental illness as opposed to a physical one. You cannot trust your own thoughts. For me, things like self-harm, including cutting myself, have seemed rational. I have also often heard voices in my head telling me to harm myself or take my own life. What I have also learned is the value of a loving family and supportive friends. If it were not for my family and friends, I would not be here today. We need to talk about mental illness, and we need to find better ways to treat people like me who have been sick for way too long. I have been willing to try everything in order to get well, to get on with my life. I have tried it all. I have tried about 25 different medications. I have been hospitalized 4 times, most recently for nearly 6 months. The Royal is a wonderful place with wonderful people. It is just not the place you ever imagined spending your 20s. I have traveled to the United States to find new medications. I have seen psychiatrists, psychologists, social workers, occupational therapists, dietitians, and nurses. I have undergone electroshock therapy 12 times. I am sure most of you, including myself, didn't even know that electroshock therapy was still being used as a treatment, but it is. I have been there and done that. It's not painful because you're under a general anesthetic, but there are major side effects like memory loss. I have lost most of my memory of the last 6 months or so. All that I have been through makes me want to share with others in the hopes for a brighter future. To this end, I have shared my innermost feelings. I want to live, and I want to live well. I also want this for others. To those of you who are close to someone living with a mental illness, please know that they need your help too. It is very difficult to face a mental illness alone. If you are struggling with your own mental illness, please get help. Talk to someone close to you. Talk to me. See a doctor. On behalf of the 1 in 5 in our community, our future will only be brighter if we can find new ways to treat people, and that is why today, raising money for research to uncover new treatments is critical. Your support can go a long way in helping those who are living with a mental illness. We cannot do it alone. I am Rachel Scott-Mignon. Now you know who I am. Thank you.